Welcome back, everyone. We will now start our next session with a panel on how organizations are managing their supplier relationships as we demand greater transparency and collaboration along the value chain. Your host is Felix Lam, the head of sustainability at Green Council, and the session is also supported by the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce. Without further ado, please welcome Felix and the speakers.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for us here, but it seems that a lot of people are still doing some very important work is social networking. Yeah, you understand? Yeah, because a lot of people have difficult timing to meet each other. Now we see that we have a lot of people still doing social networking, but take your time. But we have to start. Yeah, I'm not alone. I still need 4 panelists. Would you please come to the platform? Yeah, please. Please have a seat. Today we have 4 panelists. They are all my friends. Mike Kilburn from Airport Authority, Matt from the Matt One Cup, and Louis from MTR, and Catherine from the Town Gas of Hong Kong. And in fact, I will let them to introduce themselves about their role and about the organization and the responsibility and the improvement of the supply chain. And this section, I will have some background for you. I think everyone understands that over the last 40 years, every company, maybe say all the company, have the practice of outsourcing, subcontracting to external company. Of course, the purpose is basically is for so-called increase the specialization or because of the lower labor cost. Ultimately, everyone is looking for cost saving. Yeah, and to some extent increase the competitive advantage. Such benefit everyone enjoy over the last 40 years. And like a snowball, there is people, companies start from local outsourcing, now is international outsourcing. When everyone talking about globalization, that's a beautiful word, globalization, because the globalization, the trade increased a lot. Everyone getting increase in GDP, yeah, that's a beautiful word. But now they COVID-19 put in other hurdles on the globalization, but it still keep on. The impact is companies still outsourcing to the country that have the lower labor cost, and also the environmental regulation may be loose, or even though the protection of the human right is also less and less, yeah, such that ultimately the cost of the production will be lower. I think this is a challenge for every company, because every company, all the company are still looking for profit. Without profit, they cannot get the support from all those kind of shareholders. Nowadays, a supply chain is no longer a chain, can be a spider web. That is, it is like a spider web that is a big network, a global network. The thing made in UK, made in Japan. In fact, a lot of components may be from mainland China or from India. That is very challenging. And anyway, but how could the company to handle this kind of relationship with the international supplier, and how to nurture them to improve the sustainability performance based on this kind of challenges. And first of all, maybe I start with the ladies, yeah, Tanges, and if I interpret correctly, you're the youngest panelist, but you are the oldest company among the panelists. Yeah. Catherine, please have a brief introduction about yourself and about your role in the supply chain management. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Felix, and hello, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I've been working for Town Gas for 20 something. Anyway, yeah, I think most of you are our valuable customers that Town Gas is supplying gas to our end users and for barbing and cooking. And as a key clean energy provider in Hong Kong, we are very concerned about the SRC performance of our suppliers. I think one of the reasons why Felix invited me on stage for these sessions is because I was once appointed to implement and promote the sustainable supply chain management to over 160 city gas joint ventures in China. We are currently managing over 250 suppliers, of which we first introduced to them a award campaign to recognize their sustainable achievement in the respect of environmental quality and also social responsibilities in 15 years ago. So with this reward campaign, our suppliers can follow the target ladder to improve their production quality and also to identify and gradually eliminate their environmental impact and also to improve their social responsibilities by increasing their awareness on how to increase the welfare and also safety to their workers. So I think I would be happy to share with you all about my experience for those and during the discussions.
Thank you, Catherine. How about Louis?
Hello, my name is Louis Chung. I'm the procurement manager of MTR Corporations. I looked after the operation side of MTR, and for the railway operation, we are supported by the supply chain in three key areas. One area is the supply of railway spares and equipment to MTR. Another one is services. For example, our cleaning services, the customer service staff that you see in some of our stations, they're actually outsourced. And lastly, we are supported by our value chain in terms of works contractor in providing asset upgrade and refurbishment to our station. So what I'm going to do in this session is to share my experience and practices in sustainable procurement and in managing the supply chain to perform sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Louis. How about Matt then?
There are 40 million people in modern slavery. 25 million of them are in forced labor. 16 million of them are associated with the private sector. Here in Hong Kong, there's about 30,000 people. I focus on modern slavery and human trafficking. My name is Matt Friedman. I'm the CEO of an organization called the Mekong Club. We are an association of private sector organizations that have come together in a positive, supportive way to address the issue of modern slavery. And we do this by developing ideas of tools and trainings and tech applications that will allow companies to understand the issue and how they address it. When it comes to overall sustainability, I'm not the one to talk to. I have a sliver that focuses on forced labor and modern human trafficking. That's what I focus on. But having said that, if you have that in your company, in your network, you don't have sustainability. And that's what I'll be talking about. Thank you.
I have a question is, you mentioned that Hong Kong have 30,000 modern people under modern slavery. Who are major? Who are them?
According to the Slavery Index, about half of them would be forced prostitution victims, and the other half would be domestic helpers who, prior to actually even coming to Hong Kong, they have been put into an indebted situation where They end up coming to Hong Kong, working for 3 or 4 years, don't get paid anything because they're cheated in terms of their debt. There are also laborers and people within construction and various other sectors, often not counted. I think the number is a lot higher than 30,000.
Okay, not a good figure to us. Huh? Okay. Then Mike?
Yeah, good. Good morning. I'm Mike Kilburn from the Airport Authority. I've been responsible for building the sustainability program over the last 8 years. And our take on the supply chain is rather unique in that we only deal with the top level of companies that are working on site at the airport. Now, the approach that we take to them is very much defined by the role of the Airport Authority. We are 2,600 people managing an airport with a staff of 73,000 people, and we are the planner and the coordinator for that group. So that is the opportunity that we have to manage the airport on a range of factors beyond the financial terms. The focus for us is in relation to our environmental footprint. We take the view that what we can do to address the footprint together rather than the airport authority alone, but the entire community means we can reduce the footprint faster if we collaborate with these companies and we make it possible for them to work with us in an easy way. So every program with our partners, I define around 3 principles. They should be easy, they should be useful, and wherever possible, they should be free. So that the reason is that in the corporate world, why people don't do things is because they're complex, they're useless, and they cost too much time and money. And in our culture, you have to take away the reasons to say no before people will say yes. So I'm happy to talk about the psychology of that, but also the outcomes of achieving collaboration with a large number of companies together.
Yeah, it's challenging talking about psychology. Okay, I think it's important for an organization to have a system or control process in place to ensure the supply chain sustainability performance, including social and environmental. Would you please tell us about your system or control process in your organization to control their sustainability performance? Start with Mike first.
Sure. So let me talk about our carbon program, because this is really how we establish this airport-wide process. So about 60% of the emissions from the airport operation, not including the jet fuel burned by the airlines, comes from the business partners and 40% from AA. So when we set a carbon reduction target, we involve the emissions of 53 companies plus the authority. If you can imagine, if we have a 10% reduction, a 10% reduction of the whole is much greater than a 10% reduction of just the airport authority segment. So that's the intention, is to accelerate the rate of reduction. Now, every company is required to join our program, but not every company is required to achieve the target. Okay, what that means is we work with a coalition of the willing companies, and we're fortunate that some of the larger companies at the airport have a similar desire to decarbonize their operations. And so we are looking for ways to collaborate in achieving a reduction over a 5-year period. Now, what this means is we're generally not working with the retailers, with which we have 3-year contracts, but with the franchisees, so the likes of Payco or Hactal or the caterers who have 15 to 50-year leases, and so they're around long enough for a 5-year target to be meaningful. Now, the approach that we take is, as I say, to figure out how we can help them to do this. And the core for us is that we collaborate with them in setting the target, and then we provide a reporting mechanism, which is a piece of software under which we collect data which they can easily give us. So every company can give you their electricity bill, the bill for the diesel they consume, the gas bill if they're burning gas. So we're asking for easy information. We provide the software so that all they have to do is put in that information. Now, we make that easy because there are reporting tools that enable each company to report its carbon performance to its management. And we've plugged in the emission factors and made a framework that enables them to use that data. And then my staff provide training and audit to make sure the data is accurate. Now, so it's easy, it's useful, and it's free because we don't charge them to use that. What isn't free is each company has to figure out for itself how it's going to reduce its carbon. That can be energy efficiency, that can be a fuel switch, But at the end of the day, each company's management must decide for itself what it can afford to do, what it's willing to do, and so on. So that's the process that we broadly follow, and we have a number of strategies that help companies. So quarterly workshops where we get the technical guys together to talk to each other about what works. And I always say that the talks in those are not useful. It's the coffee breaks when the tech heads get together and discuss what really makes sense for them. Then we have an annual lunch of the bosses to talk about the high-level policy, and there we give out awards which recognize the achievement of the working level guys. And we don't just use awards to give recognition, we also use them to collect case studies of good practice, which we ask each company to give a business case for the emissions that they're achieving, and we share that information amongst the airport community so that we're encouraging the good practice to be publicized and shared for future value.
Is there any penalty if they don't meet the target?
No. A company that doesn't achieve the target just makes it harder for the rest of us. But the reason we do this is if we require them to achieve the target, that will have an implication for the franchise agreements, because if they're obliged to do something and the franchises are negotiated on what their costs and likely revenues are, this may have an impact. So we must work with them on a voluntary basis.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike. How about Matt? Any recommendation from you?
I get up in front of probably 150 audiences a year and usually have an audience of 100 people, and I talk about modern slavery, and I'll have about 5 people who really know the details of what I'm talking about. One of the biggest constraints that we have is basic information and understanding about forced labor is lacking and insufficient, and as a result of that, there are a lot of businesses who find themselves in a situation where their business is at risk. Why should the banks care about this? Well, banks have to care about this because the profits generated from modern slavery, 150 billion US dollars a year. If any of that money gets into a legitimate bank, it's money laundering. Why do manufacturers have to care? Well, many manufacturers have 3 or 4 tiers. They know their top tier very well. They don't know what the second and the third and the fourth tier is. As a result of that, maybe they're auditing the tier 1, but they don't know what's happening below that. That's where a lot of the vulnerability exists. Retailers have to be concerned about this because there are a lot of lawsuits against major companies trying to get them to use their leverage to address supply chains. And hotels have to be concerned about this because they have forced prostitution, third-party contracts, and supply chains as well. If you don't know about a topic, you can't address it. Awareness raising is essential to begin the process. In the absence of that, you really can't move forward with knowing what needs to be done within the S of ESG that relates to modern slavery. And a lot of what we do as part of our work is to help organizations to understand that, to address it, and then to apply whatever it is that we have available to their business in order to protect them.
Matt, how do you comment about the awareness of Hong Kong company about the issue of modern slavery?
I think it's about the same as anywhere in the world. I went to Canada and did a 30-day trip, but made something like 60 presentations. And I found in Canada that it was really low, North America, Europe. Hong Kong's pretty much the same as everywhere else. You hear about it, you have in the back of your mind an impression of what you think it is. A lot of people think it's forced prostitution, but it goes well beyond that. And there are other industries as well that are beginning to wake up to this. Tech industries like Facebook and Airbnb are recognizing there's a problem. Pharmaceutical companies, not from the raw materials, but because they have third-party distributing supply chain elements that when you look at them could be fraught with modern slavery. When you start shining the light on the issue, you begin to find that all over the place, there are unscrupulous people that take advantage of people within our supply chains that results in vulnerability that, if not addressed, can create a problem down the line.
Okay, thank you for your information. Louis?
Okay, in MTR, we communicate with our supplier throughout all stages of the procurement in terms of our aspiration and requirements on ESG. Starting from pre-qualification stage, before we start doing business with a supplier, we will select supplier by looking at their past performance and their capabilities. In choosing product, we provide specifications that lay out our environmental, safety, reliability, and availability performance. In that way, we would try to pick a product that meet our business need as well as meet our company's sustainability goal. After the award of contract, we carry out site inspection, we carry out testing, we go to visit our supplier to ensure that they are implementing their work and the subcontractor are implementing their work in accordance with our requirements. So that's a very simple way of how we monitor our supply ESG and sustainability performance.
But Louis, how come if I am a company that doing good at environmental and social performance, do I get some additional mark during the award of the contract? And then I can ask for a slightly higher price?
Okay. We do it slightly differently. We do not do a scoring system, but in fact, we use a sort of a compliancy in terms of we set out a goalpost, and for supply that meets our requirement, that then we start looking at the price. So it's a two envelope system. First, they need to meet the goalpost, and then we look at the price.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, please.
Yes, one of the very successful campaign, as I mentioned in my opening speech of self-introduction, is about a reward campaign to our suppliers. That kind of reward campaigns is to continuous assessment on our suppliers on their performance of quality, environmental, and also social responsibilities. We will invite our suppliers to submit their figures and also their proposals, new initiatives in their factory and also in their workplace that can meet some of the KPI that we set out for them. And through this exercise, we will reward to the outperformance suppliers with a great award and announce to our group, which will help us to promote them to our joint ventures, and that will generate more business for them. So it's a very good initiative for them to actively participate in this program. And every 2 to 3 years, we will introduce some new KPI. Like last year, we introduced an innovation KPI for them. So our suppliers can submit their innovation ideas proposal to us, and we will do our assessments and markings on them. Through this exercise, we will collect and identify some good ideas, no matter it is on product or in process or even in some environmental or social aspects, that we will implement, help them to implement and try to find some new customers to use. That means they can, through this, they can sell more of their products through this means to our joint ventures. So I think this is a great success, and also that's why this campaign can help us to nurture our suppliers.
Yeah, I found some common practices. Town gas and airport authority, they're also using some kind of award to recognize their supplier. May I ask the floor is, how many of you in your company do have outstanding employee award? Outstanding employee award. Okay, or not many hands. Then, how many companies do have the outstanding supplier award? Oh, okay. Oh, even less hand. Okay. My observation is it seems that outstanding employee award is good, a very good program, but in this there's some statistic. Not many companies do it, but even it's good. But even the outstanding supplier award is also good. Hope more companies can consider. And okay, my next question is, how do you engage or collaborate with your supply chain partner to improving your performance? Okay, I have to clarify. Engage is different from communicate. Okay, I always communicate with different girlfriends, but I only engage one girlfriend. Therefore, I would like you to talk about engagement with your supplier, not communicate. Okay, please. Captain first.
Yes, following my campaign that I just mentioned about, I would like to talk more about the new KPI that we will introduce 2 to 3 years. Like last year, we introduced the innovation. They submit a lot of proposal to us. The innovation is not only on the use of product, but also the quality to also the environmental impacts that they claim that will do less impacts to the environment. So through these all innovations ideas, we will identify and we will help them to have a small trial on their new product in some of our JVs. And if the trial is a success, we even will help them to market to our whole group for over 160 joint ventures. So for them, they have a bigger intentions, or they have more initiatives to do this kind of innovation or improvement on those environmental or quality, so that they can sell more of their products. I think this is one of the engagement that we will try to get more suppliers to participate and also to contribute to the supply chain.
Do you think is effective or?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, because they do have many good ideas actually, but they don't know how to market, or they would like to have a very effective marketing on those innovation ideas. So I think they will do their best, or even harder, to try to create more ideas if we help them to market their product.
Good. Hope you can share more case in coming future. Doris?
Thank you.
Okay, maybe I'll use the chiller replacement as a example. Recently, many of our stations need to replace the chiller system. So how we did that was in the feasibility stage, we engage with our suppliers and tell them about our ESG goal, mainly to reduce noise pollution, because many of our chiller plants sits on top of our shopping mall or our residential development. So the noise emission is one of our key concern. The other area of concern is we want to save use of electricity. So these two objectives we communicated on day one to our key supplier. So they were given sufficient time to develop model and product to satisfy these requirements. And it has been successful. Ultimately, the supplier that we selected were able to provide a product that used 30% less energy for our chiller plant.
Okay, thank you. Matt, any comment? Or?
As a consulting organization, we don't have a supply chain, so I'll answer it a little bit differently. With COVID, we anticipate that the number of people affected by modern slavery will go up significantly, up to perhaps even 20 million people. You have people who are not working, they're at home, they have no savings, they're borrowing. That borrowing allows for unscrupulous employers to exploit them. So what you have are brands very interested in knowing what's happening on the ground in these locations, but no access to people to go into those locations because of inability to travel during this quarantine type period. As a result, there's this mystery about what's happening with them, what are they doing, how are they doing it. So as part of our work, our community said, is there a way of developing a tool that would allow us to have access to that? So we adapted one of our tools, it's called the Apprise app, that allows for people in those locations to download the app, and it's very simple. It has a flag on the front, you press the flag from where you come from, and then in your language, it'll say, we're gonna ask you some questions. If the answer to the question is yes, press green, no, press red. And then you can ask 30 questions about whether or not they have money, whether they're working, whether they're in trouble, whether they need things. As a result of that, you can begin to piece together a profile of what's happening in the real world related to your workers that will help you to identify what needs to be done in order to get these people back online. The human element of this is horrific. You have a lot of people who are in terrible circumstances. And when we talk about sustainability, we always have to bring it down to the level of the environment or the human being involved. And this allows us to get as close to that as we can to understand what needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. Mike, any engagement idea on your side?
Sure. And I'll just come back to my easy, useful, and free principle and just apply that across several of the programs we have. So rather like Gabrielle was talking about feeding Hong Kong, we work with Food Angel, and the approach we take is that because we wanted them to collect from the terminal, we, through our environment fund, we bought them a truck and paid for them to operate the truck. But since it's coming to the airport, it goes to all the companies at the airport to collect food, except the ones working with Gabrielle who have their own arrangement. But the same process applies for food waste going to the O Park, because we want food collected. The other business partners have their food waste collected for free. So that's an approach that works for waste style issues. Is if you can't fill the truck, figure out how else to make the best use of the resource. And because it's easy, useful, and free, the partners join the program. Now, the carbon program I've talked about, we made it easy for companies to report and deliver value by doing so, always with the same principle. So we have more electric charges per square meter at the airport than anywhere in Hong Kong, because we wanted our business partners to buy electric ground service equipment for the aircraft. If they don't have chargers, they don't buy the equipment. So we put in the framework that enables those companies to operate. And now, post-COVID, we've offered to buy out the fleets that those companies have, because we'd like to accelerate the transition from a diesel-based fleet to an electric-based fleet. But this is valuable as well, because those companies' business case is predicated on 2-year contracts with airlines to service their aircraft, but those vehicles have a 10 to 15-year depreciation. So you see they're carrying a significant capital risk by buying equipment if they may not be able to find contracts to pay off with. So if we buy them out and allow them to lease those vehicles back when they need them only, we remove the capital risk, we make those companies stronger, we improve the performance of aircraft servicing, and we have this opportunity to reduce the environmental footprint as well. So this is one of the great kind of measures that the authority has adopted that's come out of COVID that's enabled us to go a little bit faster. So again, it's easy for the companies. They don't have to do maintenance. They don't have to own the fleet. They don't have to find the capital, so the costs come down. It's useful to them because they still have those vehicles fully charged and fully maintained by a provider, and it's not free, but it's a better financial situation to be in because they don't carry the risk of owning the equipment themselves. So again, specific solutions for specific problems is always critical, but always with the role that the authority has to empower the community to work with it to address its environmental footprint and its broad resilience issues.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is about influence your supplier. In my, I don't try to influence my wife. I only listen to her always. Somehow it's difficult to influence people. Would you, what are the difficulty or challenge on your side to influence your supplier? Kathleen? Influence.
I think I would like to answer your questions in two ways.
Okay.
It's not only to influence our suppliers, like I mentioned in the reward campaign, that they actually very proactively providing their innovation ideas. What I've tried to influence is our joint ventures in China. Because once our supplier has some innovations ideas, like I would like to put an example for you, like a water tank. We used to use some very old design and materials on water tanks. And some of our suppliers has proposed a good new materials which will be more sustainable, that the life cycle is longer, and also the hygiene for using it for storage of water is even better for the old design. But of course, the price is higher. That means we have to influence our joint ventures to accept the ideas. What is longer? What is life cycle concepts? Why do they have to pay more to buy a expensive water tank because of what? Yeah. So I think these questions is not only to influence our upstream suppliers, but also we have to influence our users. Yeah, for them to buy in for more environmental and also sustainable products, so that we can feed back to our supply chain. I think this is my answers to your question.
Yeah, but I think it's still another great challenge because you are trying to influence your joint venture. Each joint venture have their own head, and they are responsible for the profit.
Yeah.
Even I think a lot of companies in Hong Kong, they hesitate to buy some green product. It's because of the high price. Yeah, no matter the product is sustainable or, but the first challenge is for them to invest in a high price product. This is also a very big challenge. Yeah, we appreciate I appreciate your motive. Risk, challenge on infants.
Well, there's some challenges, but what we're trying to do is to treat our supply as ourselves, because they are actually, we outsource services, outsource production, and therefore they are actually part of our key partner in delivering our railway services. In terms of infants, there are some which is easy to do, but some are not so easy. I guess talk about the difficult part is that company always have to look at the bottom line, look at the financial performance, and a lot of the sustainability initiative, they cost money. Okay, so in that, what we're trying to move away from the usual transaction approach with our supplier. We want to treat them as partner. And for product supplier, we're increasingly move towards life cycle costing in selecting a product. We tell a supplier that this is the future, this is the way we're going to. So they are now starting to not just think about the initial production cost, but also to think long term, to increase the reliability, availability of the product. And that will mean less need for maintenance and replacement. And that is good for the environment. The other thing we try to do is to sort of reduce the suppliers' financial risk. So for some major supply and especially services contract, we move away from lump sum contract into variable price contract, where we will adjust the payment to supplier based on the minimum wages in Hong Kong movement and also the consumer price index movement. In that way, we hope the supplier can be better protected financially, so that they can treat their staff better. And in our major services contract, we put in a requirement that we'll be able to audit how much our service provider are paying their staff. And we actually did that to make sure that they are paying a wage that is comparable with the level in the market. So yeah, that's.
You are a very good buyer. You are a good buyer.
But we still look at the total life cycle cost.
Okay. Matt?
As all of us get older, we go to the doctor, we get our tests, we find out whether or not our glucose levels are high, whether our urea levels are high. And the data that we use determines the direction we go with our life. We don't turn off our phone. When it comes to the work that we do something quite similar. We basically do a presentation to an organization to help them to understand that human trafficking exists, how it exists, the relevance to their organization, and then we offer a baseline. What the baseline does is allows a company to understand A to Z all of the potential things that can and should be done in order for them to be competitive in ensuring that there is no risk in their overall organization. So I guess the point that I'm making is influencing often is best done when you are able to have information in front of somebody so that they understand the relevance of it to their organization.
Thank you. Mike? Challenge in influencing.
Influencing. Okay, again, it comes down to, I think for us, trying to align the interests of our suppliers with our own company interests. So a little bit like MTR, we have performance-based contracting for our main waste contractor. And again, speaking to what Gabrielle said earlier, part of the payment is designed to reward frontline staff for achieving recycling, because recycling is done by the person who decides whether something goes in this bag or that bag at the end of the day. Making a lump sum payment to management doesn't change that. So incentivizing frontline workers as part of a performance-based contract has proven effective at progressively improving our recycling rate. Another example, again, going to labor practice, is that for certain service contracts at the airport, we have a hire back policy that says that any incoming management must rehire 50% of the staff at equal or better terms than when the management was handed over. And the issue is this: we're a government organization, we have to tender for these contracts. They're very price driven, but the way to make sure that we have high quality staff in the airport is to keep people at the airport. And if the new management comes in and thinks that they can make more money by undercutting the value of what they pay staff, we will get new staff who don't know the airport. So we want to guarantee those staff stay, and so we pay more to make sure that those companies can keep them on, because that improves the service quality of the airport. And at the same time, it allows those companies to ensure that they have the good people to provide that service. Now, for the airport authority, profit is not our principal driver, so service quality as a world-class airport for Hong Kong is the principal driver, so we can afford to do that. But it's aligned with the interests of those companies. If we say we will pay you more to keep your good people, then that's what we will get.
Okay, then my follow-up question is also on all of you. In fact, there's a lot of SME in Hong Kong. You all of you come from a very large corporation, and many SME, they are not big like your company, and they don't have the resources, or they cannot employ the professional like yourself to manage their supplier, and every money for them is very tough. Yeah, even $1. Then. And also they don't have the bargaining power. Somehow you are a very big buyer. You have a very strong negotiation. If you don't listen to my instruction, okay, that's good. Then they will lose your big orders. How about SME? Do you have any? If you are working in SME, do you have any tips for them? Whether they don't have enough resources, how should they start to influence their supplier to go sustainability? Lady first.
Well, yeah, it's a difficult question for me because I don't have much experience on SME. But for me, I think objective setting is quite important for them, because big company can have more border or more objectives on those key requirements. But SME, I think they should also address some of the objectives that they concern, or they think that is achievable. And that's one of the very first thing I would suggest them to do. And the second one is to have more communication with their suppliers. Even though for us, we need to do mass communications every 2 to 3 years to our suppliers, so that to get some alignment on between us, that what's our requirement or what's our new initiatives for them. So even in SME, I think they need to communicate more with their suppliers, so that they can, do their best. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Louis?
I would recommend take a step-by-step approach. Firstly, to identify who is the SME's major or key supplier that would have an influence on their business. And unlike in MTR, we are a big employer. We afford the money to do safety training for our supplier. But if I were SME, I would get hold of my key supplier, at least the senior management, and maybe attend function like this, or some of the Green Council one-day training on various topics on sustainability. and to sort of get the buy-in from the SMEs supply chain. Yeah, that's all I can think of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Matt?
I often hear small organizations saying we don't have the resources, the people to do things. All you have to do is to go online. There's tremendous information online related to every aspect of what you need to do based on whatever size organization you are. So the idea of thinking, well, until we get to a point where we have billions and billions of dollars coming in, we can't do these things, nonsense. There are many things that can be done right now simply by kind of accepting some responsibility to figure out what is applicable to your particular business at this particular time. Go online, collect the information, everything you need is there, and apply it to your organization. There's no excuse.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. How about Mike?
Okay, well,
If you are SME.
I've never been in an SME, but I have spent lots of my career in NGOs that have even less money.
Okay.
And the challenge there is to figure out what you can do with what you've got and what you can do with nothing at all. And I used to work at Civic Exchange, a public policy think tank. The thing we most needed was partners to work with. And the challenge we had was to figure out how to pitch the proposition to get these people to work with us when we didn't have money to pay them. And we did that by framing projects which were meaningful, where people's intellectual property, their knowledge, their expertise could be channeled to making something that was better for people in general. So we sourced the thinking power not by being experts in every subject, but by being able to put together teams of people who are willing to work together to develop solutions. And the outcomes that came from that, some of them are very well known. So it's just a different style of thinking that if you haven't got money, there are different ways to achieve what you want to achieve. And finding people to help you do that, as I say, in some form, these people are supplying their expertise or their contacts or their knowledge. And if we can't pay them, what can we offer them? People don't always need to be paid to feel valued, I guess, would be the comment I would make around that specific solution or for that specific type of organization.
Yeah, maybe they can connect you to get some advice.
Possibly so.
Okay, now we come to the end of this section. We are running out of time. Today we have discussed about the system and the process for ensure the supply chain sustainability, how to engage the supplier, what the challenge and difficulty, and how to the way of reducing impact of modern slavery, and also how can an SME can ensure the supply chain sustainability. All are not easy and very challenged, but no matter how the challenges, but globalization will keep on even after COVID. Yeah, globalization will keep on. Yeah, and anyway, may I hope all of you satisfied with the experience sharing and advice from all the panelists. May I invite your big hands together for giving my faithful thanks to them. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Nice meeting you. Yeah.
Thank you, Felix, and our speakers.